Why is it that in America today, making $100,000 a year, the supposed gold standard of success, actually feels like being flat out broke? You've done everything right. You got the degree, you're working the corporate job in a city like Austin, Nashville, or maybe even somewhere more expensive like Seattle. But by the time the Federal Reserve is done with its dance, and you've paid your sky-high rent for that luxury apartment, and you've covered the lease on the SUV that makes you look like a partner at the firm, there's nothing left. You're living a high-definition life on a standard-definition budget, and the stress is eating you alive. You're playing a game where the only prize is looking successful to people you don't even like, while your bank account is screaming for help. My name is Troy, and I spend way too much time thinking about the psychology of money and the traps that keep the American middle class stuck on the hamster wheel. If you're someone who feels like you're making more money than ever, but somehow have less freedom, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, here's the thing that nobody wants to admit at the neighborhood barbecue. The moment you start making real progress, the moment your S&P 500 index fund starts actually compounding, or your side hustle starts generating real cash, your biggest enemy isn't the IRS or the fluctuating interest rates. Your biggest enemy is your own mouth. We have been conditioned in this country to believe that wealth is something you wear, something you drive, and something you post on your Instagram story. But I'm here to tell you that the fastest way to lose your wealth is to let the world know you have it. When you get rich, you need to tell absolutely no one. Now, you might be thinking, Troy, what's the point of the grind if I can't enjoy the fruits of my labor? That's a fair question, but we need to redefine what enjoyment actually looks like. Let's look at the math, because the numbers don't have an ego, but humans certainly do. Think about the millionaire next door concept. In the US, the average millionaire isn't driving a brand new Italian supercar. They're usually driving a 3-year-old Ford F-150 or a Toyota Camry. They're shopping at Costco, and they're maxing out their 401k and Roth IRA in the shadows. Why? Because they know that wealth is what you don't see. It's the money that stays in the brokerage account, not the money that's been transformed into a depreciating asset sitting in your driveway. Here's where it gets really interesting. Most people in America don't actually want to be wealthy. They want to spend like they're wealthy. There is a massive psychological difference there. When you spend like you're wealthy, you're essentially trading your future freedom for a temporary hit of dopamine. You buy the $80,000 SUV with a 7% interest rate because you want the guy at the stoplight to think you're winning. But while you're winning the status game, you're losing the wealth game. That $1,200 monthly car payment, if invested in a simple low-cost index fund over 30 years at a 7% return, becomes nearly $1.5 million. You're literally trading $1.5 million for a piece of metal that will be worth $5,000 in 15 years. Does that sound like a win to you? The moment you broadcast your success, you've essentially painted a neon target on your back. And I'm not just talking about the threat of a break-in, though that's a real concern in many zip codes. I'm talking about social taxation. The moment your friends, family, and coworkers realize you've got a bag, the dynamic of every relationship you have changes instantly. Suddenly, you're not just Troy anymore, you're a resource. Let's be real for a second. We've all seen it. You land a big promotion or your business takes off, and suddenly that cousin you haven't talked to since the Obama administration is texting you about a once-in-a-lifetime business opportunity. Or you're out at dinner with friends, and when the check comes, there's this weird, heavy silence because everyone knows you're the rich one now. They expect you to pick up the tab, and if you don't, you're the stingy one. This is what I call the success tax. It's an invisible levy on your social life that only gets higher the more you flaunt your status. When you practice stealth wealth, you're protecting your peace of mind. You're giving yourself the ability to see people for who they actually are. When people think you're just a regular guy or gal making a modest living, they treat you with their default personality. You find out who's genuinely kind, who's actually your friend, and who's just looking for a handout. It's like having a superpower. You're walking around with a secret, And that secret gives you leverage in every interaction. Now, let's talk about the appearance prison. This is a trap that kills more American dreams than the 2008 housing crisis ever did. It starts small. You get a raise, so you move from a perfectly fine apartment into a luxury one. Then you need furniture that matches the apartment. Then you need to shop at the high-end grocery store because that's where people like you shop. Before you know it, your cost of living has risen exactly in lockstep with your income. This is lifestyle inflation, and it's a death sentence for wealth. I see people all the time making $250,000 a year who are just as stressed as the person making $50,000. Why? Because they have zero margin. They're one bad quarter or one layoff away from losing everything because their entire identity is tied to a lifestyle they can barely afford. They've built a house of cards out of designer labels and lease agreements. But the stealth wealth builder? They're making $250K, but living like they make $75K. They're putting the rest into assets. They have FU money. They have the ability to walk away from a toxic boss or a soul-crushing job because they don't need the next paycheck to keep the lights on in their mansion. That, my friends, is true power. Here's another thing most people don't realize. Showing off your money actually makes your life more expensive in practical ways. It's not just the stuff you buy, it's the way the world prices things for you. If you show up to a contractor's meeting in a base model Honda, you get the standard quote. If you show up in a Porsche, there's an unwritten luxury tax added to every line item. People assume you won't miss a few extra $1,000. Your financial advisor might steer you toward exclusive private equity deals with 2% management fees that underperform the S&P 500, simply because they know you're looking for status investments. When you fly under the radar, you get the real price. You get the honest deal. Let's look at the psychology of the American dream. We are taught that the dream is about ownership, owning the big house, the fast car, the latest tech. But the real American dream is autonomy. It's the ability to wake up and decide exactly how you're going to spend your 24 hours. If your money is tied up in a high-maintenance lifestyle, you don't own your things own you. You're a slave to the maintenance, the insurance, the property taxes, and the constant fear that someone might scratch your paint or judge your outdated kitchen. I want to introduce you to the concept of the wealthy grump. Have you ever noticed that some of the richest people in your town are the ones who complain about the price of eggs? It's a cliché, but there's a reason for it. They understand the value of a dollar. They know that wealth is built through the accumulation of small advantages. Every dollar you save on an unnecessary luxury is a soldier working for you in the compounding war. Think about the Federal Reserve for a second. They manipulate interest rates to control the flow of money in the economy. You need to be the Federal Reserve of your own life. You need to control the flow of information. If you hit a big windfall, maybe you sold a property, or you got a massive bonus, or your crypto portfolio finally went to the moon, don't buy the Rolex. Don't post the life is good photo from a first-class cabin. Take that money, put it into a boring brokerage account, and let it sit. Let it grow. The satisfaction of knowing you could buy the Rolex is infinitely more powerful than the temporary thrill of actually wearing it. There's an old saying that goes, rich people stay rich by living like they're poor, and poor people stay poor by living like they're rich. It's harsh, but in the context of American consumerism, it's remarkably accurate. We are a nation of big hat, no cattle. We love the appearance of success, but the people who are actually winning the game are the ones you'd never suspect. They're the ones wearing a 10-year-old Patagonia vest and driving a dusty Subaru. They aren't trying to impress you because they don't need your validation. Their validation comes from their balance sheet. This brings us to hedonic adaptation. This is a scientific term for a very simple human trait. We get used to things. If you upgrade from a Toyota to a Lexus, it feels amazing for about 3 weeks. By month 4, it's just your car. You're back to your baseline level of happiness, but now you have a higher monthly bill. You're on a treadmill that keeps moving faster, and you have to run harder just to stay in the same place. Stealth wealth is the act of jumping off the treadmill. It's deciding that your baseline is enough, and everything beyond that is for your freedom, not for your ego. Look, I get it. We all want to be recognized. We all want to feel like our hard work has paid off. But I'm telling you, the most satisfying feeling in the world isn't someone saying, "Wow, nice car." It's the feeling of total security. It's the feeling of knowing that if the economy tanks, or if your industry gets disrupted by AI, or if you just decide you're done working, you are 100% okay. You have a fortress of capital protecting you and your family. That kind of confidence doesn't need to be shouted. It's a quiet, steady hum in the background of your life. When you keep your wealth a secret, you also protect your children. This is a huge one for those of us with families. In the US, we have a massive problem with affluenza. If kids grow up seeing that money is a limitless resource used to buy status, they never learn the grit and resourcefulness required to build their own path. But if they grow up in a modest home, seeing their parents make smart, frugal choices, they learn the value of a dollar. You can still set them up for success. You can fund their 529 plans, you can help them with a down payment on their first home, but you do it from a place of teaching, not from a place of flaunting. So how do you actually implement this? It's not about being a hermit or living in a shack. It's about relative modesty. You live in a nice neighborhood, but not the nicest neighborhood. You drive a reliable, high-quality car, but not a statement car. You wear high-quality clothes that don't have massive logos plastered all over them. You become invisible to the status seekers. You merge into the background of the upper middle class, even if your net worth is in the top 1%. This allows you to navigate the world with a level of agility that loud, wealthy people don't have. You can move through different social circles without being judged. You can negotiate better deals. You can stay focused on what actually matters, your health, your relationships, and your personal growth. Here is the hard truth that I want you to sit with today. The world is designed to separate you from your money. Marketing, social media, the credit card industry, they are all optimized to make you feel less than if you aren't displaying your wealth. They want you to be a good consumer. But being a good consumer is the polar opposite of being a good investor. Every time you buy something to show off, you're essentially paying a vanity tax to the companies that sold it to you. I want you to try something. For the next 6 months, I want you to commit to financial silence. If you get a raise, don't tell your friends. If your investments have a great month, keep it to yourself. Instead of buying something new to celebrate, take that extra money and move it into your brokerage account. Watch the number grow. Feel the shift in your own psychology as you realize that the most powerful thing you own is the money you haven't spent. You'll find that your stress levels start to drop. You'll find that you care less about what your neighbor thinks of your lawn and more about the compound interest accruing in your Roth IRA. You'll start to realize that the American dream isn't about the house with the white picket fence. It's about the freedom to walk away from the fence whenever you feel like it. True wealth is the ability to say no. No to a job you hate. No to a toxic environment. No to a lifestyle that doesn't serve you. But you can only say no if you have the resources to back it up. And you only get those resources by being disciplined enough to keep them. Here is your immediate action plan. First, go look at your recurring subscriptions and those status expenses. Are you paying for a gym membership just because of the brand name? Are you leasing a car that takes up more than 15% of your take-home pay? Be brutal. Cut the things that are for them and keep the things that are for you. Second, automate your stealth building. Set up a direct deposit so that a portion of your paycheck goes directly into an investment account before it even hits your checking account. If you never see the money, you won't miss it, and you won't be tempted to spend it on something loud. Finally, change your social script. When people talk about money or their new purchases, just listen. You don't need to chime in with your own success. You don't need to one-up anyone. Let them have the spotlight. While they're enjoying the attention, you'll be enjoying the compounding. Remember, the goal isn't to look like a millionaire. The goal is to be a millionaire. And in the long run, the person who stayed quiet and stayed the course is the one who's going to have the last laugh. When you're 60 years old and you have the freedom to travel the world, spend time with your grandkids, and live without a single financial worry, nobody is going to care what kind of car you drove in your 30s. They're just going to wonder how you did it. And your secret? You just kept your mouth shut and let the math do the work. Building wealth is a marathon, not a sprint. And in a marathon, the people who start off sprinting to show off their speed are usually the ones who gurney out before the halfway mark. Pace yourself. Keep your head down. Build your fortress in the dark. If this video made you rethink how you're displaying your success, do me a favor, hit that like button. It really helps the algorithm find other try-hard investors who need to hear this message. Comment below with the word stealth if you're committing to building wealth in silence starting today. I want to see how many of you are ready to jump off the status treadmill.